Everybody, this is Dream, and today we've got a 9-game slate here on DraftKings for college basketball. This is day one of the season. This slate starts at 6:30 Eastern. Before I get deep into it, can you guys like, comment, and subscribe? That really helps the channel a lot. Also, make sure to share the video. So I'm going to break down the players I like the best here. So the way DraftKings works for college basketball is you can put 3 guards, 3 forwards, and then 2 utility players. And so basically, you can have up to 5 of one position. And DraftKings is pretty good about getting bonuses for threes, which is definitely an advantage on DraftKings. Here's the scoring for college basketball. Obviously, we get half point for 3-point shots, rebounds, assists. About this, it's the same as the NBA, basically, on DraftKings for the college basketball. So FanDuel apparently does a little bit different where they don't have 3-point shot bonus, but over here on DraftKings we definitely have that. So with that said, let's get into the players we do like. So because we can put 5 players on each thing, I've got about 10 guys from guard and 10 guys from forward that I think are going to be the top plays today. And so let's go ahead and get into those. These are just in whatever order, because based on the team I looked at through first. So we're going to start with Chucky Hepburn here for Wisconsin. Now, he's played as a starter, it looks like, for most of his career already, and I do like him in this matchup here against San Diego, or sorry, South Dakota, not San Diego, don't know why I said that. Anyway, Wisconsin's favored, they're expected to get 74 real points, which is actually kind of low on the slate, but he's also $6,300, so he looks like a pretty decent play here. Then we're going to look at Ezra Manjon for Vanderbilt, and he looks like he's going to be one of the starting guards. It should be the point guard, in fact, and he did pretty good last season as well. Now, Vanderbilt is not favored to win their game against Memphis, and they're both going to be low-scoring games, but overall, he is one of the better-priced players on the team. Jordan Wright being the other for Vanderbilt. Obviously, he's more expensive, so he's a little bit more risky, but he will be a starter. It looks like, and he's going to have some upside in this matchup, generally speaking. Then we're going to look at C.J. Frederick for Kentucky. Now, this is a good play. He's been starting in the preseason, and I expect him to start today. I am a Kentucky fan, so I do know more about Kentucky generally, and so he is likely to start. He didn't play last season at all. Now, his price point is very minimum, and he's a 3-point shooter, so we expect him to shoot threes a lot, and that's going to be really good for fantasy. And his price point is way too cheap. Not only that, but it looks like our starting point guard, which is Wheeler, is going to be out, and it looks like Oscar Tshiebwe will also be out. And so we do have to, there's going to be some other guys that are going to take some advantage as a result of that. But Frederick should be good regardless of who plays and who sits, because he is expected to be a starter on the team. Then we're going to look at Carson Wallace here for UK. I'm sorry, Cason Wallace. I don't know why I said Carson. Anyway, he should be the starter, and especially if Wheeler doesn't play, he should be the starting point guard for Kentucky. Now, his price isn't ideal here, but he's still a decent option on this particular slate. Then we're going to look at Paul Bruns for San Diego. Or sorry, I keep saying San Diego, South Dakota. Burns is going to play a ton of minutes, and this game against Wisconsin, they are favored to lose by about 10 points, but he does have the opportunity, and he played good last year against a couple of good teams, so I do think he has some upside in this matchup, and it's not like Wisconsin is the best team, but I will say that of the teams that are unfavored to win their game, South Dakota is one of the quote-unquote better teams of those. I mean, we have George Mason and North Dakota State, Jacksonville, Howard, LaSalle, and they probably have the easiest matchup when it comes to the fact of playing Wisconsin, whereas Michigan, Villanova, Kentucky, Duke, Arkansas, Auburn are all playing, Arizona's all playing, so they have one of the easier matchups, and so that's one of the reasons I like him. The other guy on that team, Mason Archibald, he looks like he's in a pretty good spot here as well. Now, he should be starting and should get quite a few minutes in this one, and so I do like him as well. Mark Armstrong for Villanova. He's I believe a first-year guy, but his price point's pretty good, and he looks like he's going to be the starter, one of the starters rather for them. and so I do like him on this matchup. Jet Howard from Michigan also looks like he's going to be a starter here for Michigan, and assuming that he does start, then he's going to be a good option on this particular slate, and a nice little plus matchup against PFW. Then we're going to look at Jared Godfrey for PFW here. He started every game last season, it looks like, and he was really good. Now, this is a tough matchup against Michigan, and Michigan tends to be a tough defensive team. But when it comes to the bad teams, when it comes to how many points they're favored to score, PFW is actually number 2 behind Memphis. So when it comes to that, so I think that is they are likely to have a good game, and he's going to get a lot of shots regardless, and he'll have the opportunity to score good fantasy points as a result. He also likes to shoot threes. Then we're going to look at let's see here, Devontae Gaines from George Mason. He's one of the couple guys from George Mason that I like quite a bit, just because he's going to get a lot of opportunities to shoot, and he is a good rebounder for a guard as well. I also like that he has scored a good amount of fantasy points against some decent teams last season, and so I expect him to be able to do well in this game, even though it's going to be a tough game for them. Then we're going to look at Wendell Green for Auburn. Now, he does look like he's going to be a starter. I will note that I tried to only use guys that I thought were going to be starters or likely to be starters or already said they're going to be starters. So just keep that in mind. If I didn't mention specifically that a guy should be a starter, just know if he's on this list, then he is expected to start. Wendell Green Jr. here, though, for Auburn, he's going to have an expanded role this season, and I think he'll have a good opportunity in this game to pay off at his price point. And then Cedric Henderson Jr. Now, he's the only player that I found here on the slate that can play guard or forward, so we can utilize him either direction. And he is playing for Arizona, who has a nice matchup where, and they have the highest expected points on the slate, and he's going to have the opportunity to have a really big game here. And he plays a ton of minutes as well, so that's going to have a nice. He should play a lot of minutes here, so I should expect him to have a really good game. And then finally, for the guards, Kira Krisa for Arizona. He's another guy who should be the starter now, and he should have a good option to break out here and have a really good start to the season. Then we're going to look at forwards, and we have Steven Kroll for Wisconsin. He is expected to start, as far as I can tell, and he's been really good in exhibition games, and I do look for him to have a better season this year than he did last year. Now, he had some good games last year, but he's got a nice matchup here against South Dakota, so I think he's going to have opportunity in this particular game. Then Wall for Wisconsin as well, Tyler Wall. He should be another one of the starters, and he should be in line to get plenty of good minutes. And he played well last year against a really good teams, so you could imagine he had to be pretty good in this matchup. And his price point is pretty cheap for what he can do. Then we're going to look at Jacob Toppin, who he should be one of the guys that starts for Kentucky. Now, last year he was very inconsistent with minutes, but we had more options. This year, he should be one of the dominant players out the gate and should be playing throughout the season at, in a high-quality amount of minutes. And with Oscar Tshiebwe out, likely out today, he should be a guy that gets a full complement of minutes today. And then a real good value option here is Lance Ware. Now, you got to make sure that he starts with Tshiebwe and probably Collins both out. If he does start, he does have a lot of upside at this price point, but you do have to make sure he starts. Then we're going to look at Trey Patterson for Villanova. He looks like he's going to be the guy that's going to break into the starting lineup this year. And while he didn't play a ton last season, obviously, he looks like he's going to have some more opportunity in this lineup now. And so I look for this game where he, especially against a weak opponent like LaSalle, Villanova, he should be able to get a lot of minutes and a lot of opportunity to play. Then Brandon Slater. He's another guy that should start for Villanova. I really do like his upside. He was really solid last season at the end of the year, and he was pretty consistent most of the year last year. Had some inconsistencies, but, another year under the belt, and he should be better and better. So I look for him to play and be a really good option on the slate, and his price point is pretty good too. Hunter Dickinson for Michigan's a guy I do like here. Now, obviously, he's extremely expensive, but he has potential to have 50-point upside, and there's not too many guys like that on the slate. And so in this matchup, obviously, he's got a lot of advantage. The only risk now on this one is actually just blowout potential. But this is for Michigan, they're the third highest scoring team on the slate behind Kentucky and Arkansas and Arizona rather. Then we're going to look at DeAndre Williams for Memphis. Now he's an interesting play against Vanderbilt, and he has been pretty solid last season. His price point is a little bit higher than I would like, but overall he's been playing pretty well last season, and I expect him to do well this year, especially in this matchup. Then we're looking at Josh Odor for George Mason against Auburn. He's one of the few guys on the lower end teams I do like. And but George Mason is looking like they're gonna be able to score pretty well as a team, and he's gonna play a ton of minutes. And he did pretty decent last season against some decent teams. He had a game where he scored 21 fantasy points against Kansas and a couple others. So I think he's in a good spot here, and he should have more. He should be a big part of their offense. Then we're gonna look at Johan Traore for Auburn. Now, he's a guy that hadn't played yet, so I expect him to come out and be in the starting lineup. As far as I can tell, that's the plan from Bruce Pearl. Then we're going to look at Trayvon Brazile for Arkansas. He's one of the few guys in Arkansas I do like pretty good today. He should play a full complement of minutes and should have a lot of upside in this particular matchup. And then Cedric Henderson, I already mentioned. He can play forward or guard. And then Azula to be list for Arizona. He is obviously pretty expensive, but he's going to have an expanded role this season, and I expect him to come in and be a good player, especially with them losing their star center last season. So with that said, I think it's an interesting slate. It's going to be a little bit difficult to some degree because we don't know too much, because nobody's really played a game yet on this particular slate, but as the season progresses, it'll get easier. But overall, I think we have a good complement of players, and we got plenty of value plays that are going to be viable today. So if you have any comments or questions about any of the players, feel free to leave them below. And thank you, and have a nice day, guys.